In September 2026, Shelley and I are doing something we've never done before. We're leaving the rivers of Europe behind and heading to Colombia to cruise the Magdalena River with AmaWaterways. Now, this is the first major river cruise brand to sail South America that's not on the Amazon River. And today I've got two insiders from AmaWaterways joining me to break down what we should expect, what makes this itinerary completely different from a European river, and whether Colombia might be right for other American travelers. We've sent some travelers on the Magdalena River. They've come back with exceptional things to say about the experience and just had a wonderful time. So we're going to go and embark on that exotic trip on our own as well. Hi there, I'm William with River Cruise Experts. Shelley and I specialize in river cruising, specializing in 12 English forward-speaking brands, and we've been aboard 10 of them already. AmaWaterways is one of our top sellers, and when we're booking the AmaMagdalena for this September, we did a 5-day pre-cruise extension, 3 nights in Medellín, 2 extra nights in Cartagena before boarding the ship. We're going to talk about that here in just a moment, but this is a part of the brand conversation series that we're having across multiple different brands. We'll be filming the entire trip and bringing back some honest reviews and some feedback for our guests when we're back. So to help us get ready for our river cruise with AmaWaterways down the Magdalena River, we've got two special guests joining us from AmaWaterways today. Marcy, our business development manager, and Columba, who specializes in the Magdalena itinerary, have graciously joined us. So Marcy, Columba, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us, William. We appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, William. Great to be here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. So what we're going to do is a bit different than our brain conversations. We're going to have Columba walk us through what to expect on the Magdalena River in Colombia. And I'm going to hand it over to Columba to get us started.
Thanks so much. Yes, so we're really excited to be here today to talk about the Magdalena River in Colombia. William, you're aware of this, but probably your audience is not. You know, when people think of river cruising in South America, their first thought usually goes to the Amazon because that's just the most popular river in South America. Well, AmaWaterways is really proud to be the very first company to offer river cruisings to a different destination. We're going to Colombia and we're sailing on the Magdalena River. A few years back, our founders, Rudy Schreiner and Christine Karst, took a trip to Colombia. Rudy had been to the Amazon many years ago as a young man, and he didn't find it that interesting. He's like, I don't know, lots of birds, wildlife, but nothing more. So they went to Colombia and they were just really entranced by the people, the color, the rhythms, just everything about it. You could see them there in 21 when they were doing the exploratory trip. They all have their masks on because it was during the COVID time, right? But they really found it to be such an interesting place to go. So they wanted to explore how they can navigate this river. Now, the Magdalena River obviously has been around for a long time. It has many World Heritage sites in the country of Colombia itself. And Colombia has been long neglected, let's face it, for many years because people were afraid to go there, drug cartels and, just crime and all of that. But it has really cleaned itself up beautifully. People are anxious to get there before the crowds start to get there. So that's why we're really excited to be the first company to explore the rivers of Colombia. So lots of World Heritage sites, nature and wildlife, bird life. There are more species of birds in Colombia than there are on the Amazon, which is kind of hard to believe. Enriching music and culture. As I mentioned before, the rhythms of Colombia, they're known for the music, the cumbia, the sounds. Barranquilla offers the world's second largest carnival after Rio de Janeiro. So people there are excited to have us come and visit their country. They're just so happy to see us there. And of course, exceptional coffee, and the cuisine was fantastic. I teasingly say my 3 favorite drinks are coffee, vodka, and water. So we got one of them there, and I got to explore a fantastic coffee farm when I did the pre-package that went to Barranquilla, which we'll talk about later. So again, second most biodiverse country in the world. The bird life, the species of wildlife that you will see is amazing. Finest coffees and chocolates, and the land of 1,000 rhythms. Just look at those smiling faces, beautiful colors, and they're just ready to get up and dance. So the first ship that was launched was in 2025. So it took a few years in the making. And, the Magdalena River, just like the rivers in Europe, was used basically just for transportation for years. I mean, there wasn't really sightseeing. But now you've got this beautiful ship. This is one of two of them. We have the AmaMagdalena and the AmaMelodia. The AmaMagdalena is 30 staterooms and the Melodia 33 staterooms. And I'm going to show you photos of the interior of the ships. But what I love about all of our ships in all of our exotic destinations is that they are ships from that destination. They give you the feel of that destination. We're not bringing over some European, foo-foo ship. You've got Colombian staff on here. When you do Egypt with us, they're Egyptian. Vietnam, they're Vietnamese and Cambodian. So the minute you step on board, you've got that sense of where you are and not, being catered to by European staff. So you really get the flavor of the destination. The Magdalena, there's a shot of it. It runs through a big portion of the country of Colombia. And when we get to the map, you'll get to see that a little bit more clearly. But for those of you that have never been on a river cruise, you will see land at all times. It's not like being on an ocean liner where you see nothing but water. So just to put that into perspective for you, here's the map. So when we look at the two itineraries that we offer, you can start here in Barranquilla and work your way along the river and then back, or in Cartagena, going the opposite direction. But all these little dots are the different cities that you will visit along the way and where you will spend the time exploring. What we're showing you here in Panama, we do offer a post extension, which we'll talk about later. So that's why it's on the map so boldly. Now, taking a look at the actual ship. So I did mention chocolate. I did mention coffee. There's a lot of forestry as well in Colombia. So look at all this beautiful wood that's being used throughout the ship. Again, the feel of the destination, the baskets, the wooden vases here. Another thing that's interesting about this ship is that the godmother, I forgot her last name, but she was a Carnival Queen at one point. I think it's 2007 or 2009. And she is now a furniture designer. And she designed much of the furniture on board the ship. And so, again, giving back to the communities there, that's what it's all about with AmaWaterways. That's what we pride ourselves in doing. So she became the godmother. And when you look at the staterooms, this is our categories A, B, and C. 30 staterooms, that's it. The beds can be together or apart. You just let William know and we will arrange that for you. You'll see that there is no such thing on this ship as just a windowed stateroom. You will have twin balconies. So on the right is a step out balcony here. You can't actually see it here, but this is a French balcony on the left. We have a few suites on board. Look at that nice expansive balcony here.
I like how the foot of the bed is facing to the river on that ship. On the suites, it's kind of a different plan. So it
Yes.
makes it quite beautiful that
Yes.
way. And then the French balcony being kind of the entry point is absolutely fantastic. That's considered a really solid stateroom that you would have on a European river. So some interesting differences and parallels to kind of tie together.
Absolutely. And it's similar to what we have in the Mekong, because even in the Mekong, the minimum is balcony stateroom. So,
Mhm.
yep, the smaller ships do give you a little bit more than our ships in Europe. So this is a shot of the public spaces on board the main lounge. Again, all the wood furniture, the wood tables. We have a beautiful sun deck. We do have a masseuse on board. We do have a wellness coach on board. So everything that if you've ever been with us on a European cruise, we have all the amenities of the European ships, but just on a smaller scale here. So you'll have, the pool deck up here, and then again, lots of beautiful space. You can just enjoy the vistas. You see the big cities when you're sailing out of Cartagena. Some of the big ships obviously go to Cartagena now, but they hit to this downtown area, and they also go to the colonial old world town. So some of you may have been to San Juan, Puerto Rico. You'll get that feel when you're in the old town of Cartagena. And I'm going to show you pictures as we go through, but just beautiful, beautiful views along the way. Of course, the cuisine. That's what we pride ourselves on as well. You're getting the flavors of the destination. When I traveled there last year, I kind of did a little behind the scenes kind of a tour because I was taken to two fabulous restaurants where I learned that those were the chefs, were the ones that were curating the meals for the ship. So here you can see the chef plating the meals, lots of use of vegetables and seafood. Yep. I'm sorry, William.
So that looks great. It almost looks like a paella that he's got
Yep,
there.
in that big bowl.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm
So, of
excited
course,
about
if you
that.
have any kind of dietary restrictions, we will, do our best to accommodate. So just let William know and, we can take care of it just as we do in all of our ships and all of our destinations. Of course, we have our customary sip and sail cocktail party every night before dinner. So that's to be expected. And of course, local flavors. Look at that colorful drink that you're having there. And then the entertainment is going to be different. It's not Europe. It's not Egypt. It's going to be Colombian. It's going to be local people that come off the streets of the cities and come and entertain you. So again, music, dance, that's the focus, with lots of wonderful things like this that are going to be happening on land as well as on the ship. So getting back to the two itineraries, we've got the Wonders of Colombia going in one direction from Cartagena to Barranquilla, and the Magic of Colombia going the opposite direction. So depending on what works for you, we've got them both. So like I said, and then the end of the trip, you could fly to Panama for an extension there. So looking at some of the cities, here's the colonial part of Cartagena, very old world. Now Cartagena is on the Atlantic Ocean. So you do have beaches there, obviously, but it's a very unique place because the Spaniards discovered it centuries and centuries ago. And as I mentioned, some of the forestry there and the coffee, don't forget there's also gold, emeralds. All of these things were what the Europeans were coming to Colombia for. They wanted to tap into all these fantastic minerals. So there's a fantastic fortress as you're entering the city that you will see from afar. A lot of the walls have been taken down, but you still get the feel of it. And you'll go to San Felipe, which is the fortress right at the mouth of the ocean. So these are just some of the colorful buildings that you'll see along the way. These are photos that I actually took when I was there. I love taking pictures, and I love the new feature on the iPhone where you can delete people because people are all asking me, where's all the people? I said, oh, I get up very early. I was lying. I deleted them. So there's some other shots. Now this picture on the right is an interesting one. We take you to this little neighborhood and it's called Gethsemane. And it's a closed off street where you've got artists all through the streets. They have little tiny shops. And while we were walking through, I learned that one of the shops is the shop where Christine, the owner of the company at the time, bought many of the pieces of art that are on display on the ships. So again, giving back to community. We didn't go to some foo-foo gallery. We went to these street artists to purchase art for the ships. And you'll just walk around and take it all in. You'll walk through the streets. You'll look up and you'll see a sloth in a tree. You'll see a monkey in a tree. I'm like, where am I? I mean, I'm used to squirrels. That's about as exotic as I get in New York, okay? So it's very, very unique. And just art galleries in that area. We walked from our hotel to, I think it was called the NH Gallery. Just walked in, beautiful artwork. We happened to meet an artist. He was there doing a show that day, and we got to meet him, and it was pretty interesting. So just lots and lots of local color, local things to do. As you're sailing, of course, you're going to stop in towns and villages. This is one of the favorite stops of all the guests. They go to this little town called Palenque. Now, Palenque was a slave town. At one time, there were more African slaves in Colombia than there were Colombians. Crazy. But again, the Spaniards went to get the slaves or transported the slaves from Africa to mine the gold, to get those emeralds, to get the coffee, to just, take all the riches from that country. So Palenque was a community, and it was known as the first freed slave town. So they freed their slaves in Colombia prior to the U.S. freeing their slaves. So that's what it's known for. You will get to walk through the streets. This picture happens to be a recording studio in the town of Palenque. There's actually a Grammy Award winning band or singers, I guess it's a band you would call them, group that is from Palenque. So this is the studio. You get to go in, you get to play the instruments. They're really rustic instruments, a xylophone and little shakers and that kind of thing, but they create a beautiful sound. All of this scribbles you see on the walls, you get to leave your signature, your mark. Try to find yours when you leave. Forget it. I signed. I don't know if I'd ever find it again. But there's a little gift shop. They're known there, for their handicrafts, beautiful beaded jewelry, just really unique items, wood carved statues and that kind of thing. These two, this is a man and a woman here. This is the police department in Palenque, just so you know. Very, very interesting. You'll get to walk into people's homes to see how they lived. This girl was doing a demonstration of how they did their hair, and they would hide secret notes in their hair when they were trying to, communicate with each other, and just the oppression that was there. We got to meet the medicine man of Palenque. So that happens to be my thumb holding this little rustic kind of a tea that they gave us. So he gave us all a blessing. We walked away feeling very, very good about ourselves when we left Palenque. Very interesting place to visit. Lots of the transportation, you'll be traveling in these little kind of rickshaw. If any of you have been with us to Vietnam and Cambodia, you might remember that. But Calamar is a beautiful, colorful town where you'll be escorted around. You'll see, of course, the town square. And every town we go to, and I think Marcy can attest to this, we've seen many pictures of the smiling kids that come and want to
Yeah.
greet you and want to just welcome you to their community. Santa Barbara de Pinto, fantastic for shopping. Lots of straw items. So if you want to buy a few, you can stack them up and put 3 or 4 in your head to take home. But again, wood carved items like spices, that kind of thing that you can purchase. But just a different way to see how different people live. And they're just really, really happy to have you there. And then, of course, more wildlife. So the ship itself, as I said, has 30 staterooms, 60 guests. But we do have 3 smaller boats that take you ashore or take you into different tributaries of the Magdalena River. So to see more wildlife, we have sunset cruises, we have sunrise cruises off of the main boat. So if you don't want to do this, you can just stay on board, get a massage, relax. If you're a morning person, go take the sunrise. But I hear the sunset trips are pretty spectacular too. You'll see bird life. Bring binoculars because you will probably enjoy having them handy when you're on a trip like this. And then Mompox. Mompox is one of the biggest cities you're going to stop in along the way. You'll spend actually 3 nights in the town of Mompox, so lots to explore here. And Mompox is known for its jazz music, believe it or not. So you will be met by a jazz troupe that comes to the ship. They will welcome you to the town. You'll have time to, of course, take one of the escorted tours. Just taking a look, you've got exclusive cumbia performance that takes place here. You've got morning nature experience or historic walking tour with a tuk-tuk ride, again that famous tuk-tuk, and then a sunset experience. So you get to choose. And what you're seeing on the right, what they're also known for, their beautiful filigree gold jewelry. So there's a class you can take. You can make something of your own, a souvenir to take home, but a very, very interesting stop in Mompox. And then it's just again some of the birds and wildlife you'll see off of the ship. There's our cumbia performance, so colorful, musical, and off the ship as well as on. And then the last stop will be Barranquilla. As I mentioned earlier, Barranquilla is the world's second largest carnival. So you will be met by a carnival performance, all the colorful costumes. It's just so much joy that they come and perform. And the kids, the adults, everybody has a great time on a trip like this. So again, the 2 itineraries, Wonders, and I think you're doing Wonders, right, William?
We're doing the Wonders, yes, from Cartagena to Barranquilla.
Excellent. And this is the pre-package that you'll be doing?
Right. So on our trip, we're doing a combo of the 3 nights pre-cruise in Medellin and then the 2 nights in Cartagena. But we did not have time to fit in the Panama City post.
Got it. Okay, well, in Cartagena, I'll tell you, we use a fantastic property. We're staying at the Sofitel Legend, Santa Clara. Absolutely beautiful hotel. To be a legend, you have to be a historical building. So on this trip, if you were doing the post, you would also be staying at the Sofitel Legend in Panama City, Casco Viejo. So beautiful, beautiful properties in the old town. You could just walk out and you're in the middle of everything. And you'll get a walking tour when you first, get to Cartagena. Medellin, really colorful, wonderful city. We stayed at the Hilton there. We took a ride up to the coffee farm. Now, having done so many European cruises, I've been to many vineyards along the way, but I had never been to a coffee farm, amazingly enough. And amazing to see all the different varieties, how they blend the coffee, how they mix. You'll have a demonstration. There'll be a tasting of the coffees, of course, tastings of chocolates that go with the certain coffees. So really unique experience. We take you up to this old part of Medellín, where you'll see the local communities. And then what I also liked about it, they took us to Botero Park. Now, if any of you are familiar, Botero, that's Botero, he's a famous sculptor and he's Colombian. Now, you might not recognize the name, but once you see one of the sculptures, like, oh, that guy, he's the one. I should have put a picture in here. He creates a lot of, should I call them chubby little? There, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but when you see it, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. But you'll go through Botero Park, where many of his sculptures are on display. I mean, his things are displayed worldwide. I remember the first Botero I ever saw was in Hawaii, and I said, wow, that's interesting. And that's where I learned the name Botero. So if you're doing the Medellin 3-night pre, you would check into your hotel. Again, it's the Hilton that we usually use, the coffee region tour and tasting, and the city tour will take you to Botero Park. Then we've got the combination here where we're doing just the Cartagena. I mentioned earlier the San Felipe Castle visit, also the Gold Museum and the Naval Museum. Of course, being right on the Atlantic Ocean, you're going to get all of that history of the Spaniards, the Portuguese, all wanting to get to Colombia and to their goods that they offer. And then if you were, which unfortunately you're not, but I did the Panama City extension, which I absolutely loved. So for those of you that are listening in and want to do this, I think it's great. You can do it at the end of the trip. You would fly from Barranquilla to Panama City. You'll be again in the old town at the Sofitel Legend. You'll visit the Panama Canal. All my years in the business, I've never done a Panama Canal cruise. Well, you won't be doing it here either, but you'll get to see the makings of it. There's a fantastic museum that's right there that explains the whole process. And this is where the Atlantic meets the Pacific. So it's very, very interesting. They talk about how many ships a day go through here and how it really changed the world of commerce when this canal was constructed. So you'll get to see that. Then you'll take a ride to Chagres National Park, which is another fantastic excursion on a small boat that takes you to an Indian village that I absolutely loved. Kids come out, the families come out. They do a whole performance, singing and dancing. You have lunch there. They serve lunch in a palm leaf. It's some tilapia with plantains, and it's just a really enjoyable, colorful day. And then you'll fly home. But here you can see like Panama, the skyline. It looks like any big city, Miami, New York, but the old town is where you're going to be staying, and that's where the real flavor and the culture is. So really fantastic opportunity to see those countries. So that's the end of the actual presentation, but of course we'll open up for any questions that you might have, William, or anything you want to enhance here, anything further you want to say, or Marcy?
So just a real quick pause here in our conversation with Margaret. I did want to share with you, if you're watching this and realizing that there are more river cruise brands out there than you ever thought, there's actually more than a dozen, as I mentioned earlier, and you find that the right fit might actually be something different than what you're currently looking at, feel free to reach out to me. We'd be happy to have a conversation with you. We can walk you through the comparison between the different ones, give you a little bit deeper of a conversation about whether Emerald or another river cruise is the right brand for you. There's going to be a link in the description. I've also got a QR code up here on the screen. No pressure, just a free consultation, very honest conversation. And when you're ready to book with us, our guests do receive some exclusive onboard credits that you won't get by booking directly. All right, so back to Margaret. Well, I've got some questions here. So I have been on numerous European river cruises. This is going to be our first exotic river that's going to be outside of the European rivers that is so common for river cruising. The typical day in the life of a river cruise in Europe is to sail during the night, port during the day, kind of do some exploring. And as I understand, this has a little bit different scheduling. Some of the, on a European river cruise, during a week, you're going to have several hours. You're doing a scenic sailing, either on the Rhine through the castles or something similar to that. So tell us a little bit about what the sailing experience is for this versus somebody that's been on a European experience.
Well, here, yeah, it is quite different because here you're in one country. When you're in Europe, you're sailing through multiple countries. So because you're in such close proximity to everything, it's going to be a much slower pace. You can have overnights in, like I said, in Mompox, you're there for 3 nights. I think it was 2 nights, 3 nights. So it's a slower pace. You're going to be sailing daylight hours most of the times to get the scenery in, and sometimes during the night. But it is, similar to Portugal, because you're in just one country, we do take you ashore for a couple of meals, where most times in Europe, all the meals are on board the ship,
Mhm.
except if you have some free times and you want to enjoy something off the ship. But pretty much everything is on the ship. So much slower pace, more relaxed pace. Remember though, it is going to be hot when you're in Colombia, so you want to be prepared for that. Because in Europe, you go in the spring and the fall, you could have a cooler weather, but here it's going to be hotter. It's kind of like
But
going, to
yeah,
Egypt or Vietnam with us. So you got to
Mhm.
be prepared for that.
and there's definitely some seasonality. I kind of walk each of my guests through what those different seasons look like versus, the rainier times versus some of the drier times. So not truly defined, but just a little bit. And I do agree it's going to be either quite warm or just hot. So we kind of help our guests identify what that looks like. Let's talk a little bit about what some people would be discouraged from this itinerary about. It's what it is in the world of today. I've got quite a few guests that are concerned about this itinerary because it is Colombia. So it's just safety concern. And some of those are decades old
Mhm.
concerns that, Colombia once was not a safe place. So could you kind of talk about what things have happened, what things have changed? It's just a routine conversation that I have with each guest that I talk to about this one.
Yeah, I mean, that does come up just as it did with Egypt when we go to Egypt, but
Mhm.
we would not be going places that are unsafe. We have, security, of course, and that's the beauty of this. You're not going on your own. You're going with AmaWaterways. Just like in Europe, you have a cruise manager that's with you from beginning to end. They get to know you. They got their eye on you. Okay.
Mhm.
Right.
So we have security there. We have not had any incidences yet in 1 year that we're traveling there. But, for people that are hesitant, they want to go, they're really curious about seeing this destination. This is the best way to do it. Doing it with Alma Waters, the safety of our guests, of our ship, of our staff is what's most important to us. So,
Right.
you know, and we have
I
a
tell everybody
team.
they're not willing to take a risk. It's just
No.
they're not going to risk their brand for something like this. So they were going to do an exceptional job to make sure that it's safe. And it's no different than traveling throughout America. We've got some cities, large cities around America that have some unsafe sections and some amazing sections. And we
Mhm.
just know that when we're going to travel there, we want to stay in those nicer parts, nicer sections, and just know where to avoid. And Alma Waterways has already figured that out, and it's going to help identify for that. So I
Absolutely.
like to broach that conversation because it's one that always comes up.
I want to include in there that I don't know if people realize it, but there are 4.6 million tourists that visit this beautiful country every year. So I think that in itself speaks very loudly about the safety and the welcoming that we are given by the local people and the local communities.
Right. Perfect. I greatly appreciate you guys spending some time with us to talk about the amazing itinerary. I think I'm going to have to visit with the wife about expanding to the Panama City now. See if we can add that into our schedule. But if you have any other last minute thoughts that you'd like to share,
I just think you'll really enjoy it. The last presentation I did, this agent had been on many cruises with us, and she was like, "How would you like? What's one word that would summarize your feeling about this destination?" I'm a big Europe girl. I love, big cities. I love bustling things like that and architecture. This was so much slower. Like I said, it was a more raw experience. It was more joyful experience because people, it's not like traveling to a European country where people are like dressed a certain way or acting a certain way. Everybody here was just so happy to have us. And just seeing those raw emotions of the people, it just made you happy. I can't say enough about it. I look forward to going back.
I
it was
have a lot
wonderful.
of groups that have been Columba, and that was the one commonality amongst everyone that traveled was they cannot wait to go back.
Yeah.
And that speaks very loudly about the destination, I think.
And it's close to
Pretty
home, which I love too.
Uh-huh.
I took a quick flight from JFK. I stopped in Panama City to get to Cartagena, but then because I did the Panama City extension at the end, I flew directly home. So maybe you don't want to do an exotic and go all the way to Vietnam or all the way to Egypt. not now, you know. This is close. You get the fantastic AmaWaterways experience, which is always constant with our product, no matter where you are. So, you know, I say do it before the crowds start going.
Hmm.
We're trying to figure out how to pull off the Mekong River for the end of next year. So
Get
we're
that
going
on
to
the
continue
books.
our journey of the
Fabulous. Yeah.
exotics. Yes, get it on the books now. Well, again, I thank you very much for spending time with us and sharing with our guest great information about this amazing itinerary. I know it's still brand new, but it's doing amazingly well, and we're quite excited about our own personal journey and to come back and share our experiences with everyone else.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. So this has been part of the Brand Conversation series here on River Cruise Experts. We've got conversations with Scenic, Riviera, AmaWaterways, and so many more that are scheduled coming soon. So feel free to like, subscribe, and throw some comments down below. Be happy to answer each one of those. Or if you realize you need some more information helping to navigate the various options, feel free to reach out. The link is in the description below. I'm also going to throw up a QR code on the screen. The consultation to visit with is absolutely free, and oftentimes we're able to get you a substantially better offer than you can find on your own. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.